They're not even interested in discussing this democratic reform, but also, Mr. Speaker, that the first questions he asks about policy are not about the economy, not about the health service, not about education, not about public services, not about the issues that the public out there know that we and they are concerned about.
I have to say to the Prime Minister, it's remarks like that that make him a figure of ridicule across this country. Everyone is entitled to ask what the Prime Minister's motive is. For 12 years, not a squeak about electoral reform, and now suddenly, because he's getting trashed at 2 elections, suddenly he wants to put it on the agenda. This is all of a piece with the Prime Minister treating the nation like fools, expecting us to believe that the honourable member for Edinburgh South West is his first choice as Chancellor.
Alistair Darling.
He cancelled the election because he was going to win it. The Prime Minister said he had no plans for a referendum. Now, we all know what that means. He said he had no plans to put up taxes in 1997. So instead of saying no plans, let him stand up at that dispatch box and rule out a referendum.
I said I had no plans. I repeat, I have no plans. Mr. Speaker, isn't it again remarkable? What MPs are being told by their constituents is to concentrate on getting the politics of this country sorted out. What they're being told is concentrating on getting us through the recession. What they're being told is build us a better future, and not one question from the Leader of the Opposition can be about the central issues facing our country.
The Prime Minister has chosen today to make a statement about constitutional reform. He can't complain. He can't complain that I'm asking questions about it. And when the Prime Minister talks about the economy, let's be clear what his legacy will be. Not the most useless government we've had in history, though it is. His legacy will be the biggest budget deficit in Europe and the biggest we've had in our history. So let's be clear about this no plans or no proposals today, as he put it. A man with no democratic legitimacy, who's never been elected as our Prime Minister, who's been defeated every time the public have been able to vote for him, is now considering trying to fix the rules of the election before the next general election. Isn't that what's happening?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, on public spending and deficits, let him confirm that his proposals are for a 10% cut in most departmental expenditure. If he wishes to raise the question of deficits and debt, let him confirm that that is now the proposal of the Shadow Chancellor to cut public expenditure by 10%, as confirmed by the Shadow Health Secretary this morning. And let us have a debate about the choice that really does exist in the country between a Conservative Party that now wants to cut even at a time of recession, into our basic public services, and a Labour Party that wants to invest in them. Let him also be honest with the country that when it comes to calling for election, he has absolutely no plan for dealing with the recession. He has got no policies for dealing with unemployment, no policies for dealing with small businesses, no policies for dealing with the problems of this country. He is an opposition leader who has no plans for government, and he doesn't deserve to be in government.
I had one of my plans for dealing with the recession was the same as the Prime Minister's last week: sack the Chancellor. He might be talking about a second preference voting system. The fact is, he's left with a second preference Chancellor. Now, on the issue of public spending, let's be clear about the answers the Prime Minister has given. He said last week, public spending is rising every year. That is what he said. His Chancellor said, I have cut overall public spending. The figures the Prime Minister is hawking around are his own figures. He is planning to cut public spending by 7% in every department over the next 3 years. The next election, when he has the guts to call it, won't be about Labour investment versus Tory cuts. It's going to be an election about the mismanagement. It's going to be an election about the mismanagement of the public finances, the appalling deficit he's left, and his plan for cuts. But let me just ask him this question. Why not? Why not on the issue of electoral reform? Why not on the issue of electoral reform admit this? The current system gives the country the chance to throw out a government that is weak, that is divided, that is incompetent, and that's what we should be having now.
Mr. Speaker, let me read the figures for public spending so that there is absolutely no doubt about the truth of what I'm saying and that he's got it wrong. Public spending this year is $621 million. It rises next year to 672 million, that's this financial year, then to 702, then to 717, then to 738, then to 758. That is public spending rises. The only party that's proposing a cut in public spending is the Conservative Party. And he's right. At the next election, there will be a choice. There'll be a choice between a government that help people and actively intervene to take us through a downturn and a Conservative Party that would do nothing.
Mr Robertson, you can't behave like that.
Tory Andrew Robertson.
You're on the risk of being put out the House. You're on the risk of being put out the House. Everyone's got to be quiet. The Prime Minister.
There will be a choice between a government that has actually intervened to deal with the recession and a Conservative Party that said do nothing. And it will be the choice now between a government that is increasing public spending by the figures that I've raised and a Conservative leader who, for the first time in the House of Commons during this Parliament, has now admitted that the policy of his party is spending cuts. That is what he's told us today. That is going to be the choice before the country.
Loves this dividing line, says Gordon Brown, so cuts from the Tories, that's what his accusation is.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I know you're very anxious to hear this question.